Hi, I'm Christian Triola, author of The Missing Method for Guitar Books. And in this video, I'm going to go over the 11 essential rhythms that you'll want to learn to get good at strumming your guitar. These 11 rhythms are fundamental to understanding more complicated rhythms as well. So once you get good at these, you'll find yourself being able to figure out more complicated rhythms much more easily. I do want to note, however, that all of the examples here that we're doing today, all 11 rhythms, are in 4/4 time. I'll be doing videos on 3/4 time, 2/4 time, 6/8 in the future. But these are the ones that will get you started. They're by far the most common, and that'll really help you build a strong foundation for your rhythm guitar playing. All right, so before we get started, I encourage you to download the PDF. All 11 rhythms are written out on there. There's some suggested chords as well so that you can practice them, and then do them every single time you practice. Do those first, set your metronome, and get to practicing those first. They'll help kind of get you focused. They'll get that rhythmic feeling kind of inside you. You'll internalize this stuff much faster if you do it every single time you practice. Also, before we get started, go to our website, themissingmethod.com. And once you're there, if you sign up for the newsletter, you'll get a free ebook. So I always want to mention that. So make sure you do that after you check out this video. So let's go ahead and get started with the essential rhythms. Now, the first one we're going to talk about is very basic. In fact, it's one you may already know how to do. But it's essential to get the feel of quarter notes, because from there you can learn all sorts of divisions of that basic beat. So in 4/4 time, the quarter note is the beat. It's the same thing. So what you want to do then is practice that so that every beat is exactly the same distance as the last. So to do that, I highly recommend using a metronome. So I'm going to turn mine on here. I have it set to 60 beats per minute, which is the 60 in the corner. Turn it on. I'm just going to put it up here. Each click is a beat. So what I'm going to do then with the first essential rhythm is just strum with the beat. So I'm going to grab a G chord. I'm going to kind of tap my foot and swing my hand to the beat. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. And then start strumming. So that basic beat, as easy as it is, you'll want to practice it, because if you can sync up with the metronome that easily, you know you're off to a good start, and the rest of these rhythms will start to feel easier and easier as you go. Now, on the PDF, it actually changes to a C chord, but I ignored that, and you can too. You can just play with one chord the whole way through so that you're focusing on rhythm rather than what's going on in your left hand or in your fretting hand. All right, so now we've got that established. We have a strong quarter note. The next rhythm we're going to do are all eighth notes, and there's two different ways we can approach this. The first one is to do eighth notes the traditional way, and what that means is you would strum down on the beat and strum up in between the beats. Now to count that, you would have 1 and is in between, 2 is back on the beat, and would be in between. With the pick, of course, you're going down, up, down, up. Now, when I set the metronome back on, what I'm going to do is strum on the beat, in between, back on the beat. So there's actually a strum with no click that happens in between beats. So here's a demonstration on how you might do that. 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So you can hear those rhythms are even. You don't suddenly speed up. You don't suddenly slow down. You keep things real steady, and that'll help you lock into that eighth note feel. Now, depending on the style of music, you're not always going to go down and up on eighth notes. In fact, there are a lot of times, especially in rock and roll, punk rock, classic rock, it's all downstroke. You know, a couple bands that come to mind right away are the Ramones. They do a lot of all downstroke stuff. The song Peggy Sue by Buddy Holly, it's all downstroke. And it gives you a different feel. When you're dividing the eighth note like this, you can hear that upstroke is a little bit weaker sounding than the down. So the downstroke makes everything sound a little bit harsher, a little bit more in your face. So I'm going to just do a quick demonstration with that. 60 beats per minute again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 4. So you can hear it has a different sound. It's maybe even a bit louder because of how you're approaching that. Now, of course, you don't have to make it loud. You can do it quietly too and still get a good sound. All right, let's move on to the third example. And actually, for examples 3, 4, and 5, they're variations on these first two strum patterns, meaning that they're going to use quarter notes and eighth notes in different combinations. Now, these three examples aren't definitive because there's a lot of different ways that you could approach this, but these are some very common rhythms that you'll come across. So number 3, the basic rhythm here is 1, 2, 3, and 4 and, or quarter, quarter, eighth, 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 eighth. So I'm going to strum through the number 3 example. Click the metronome again on, and this time I'm going to change chords. So I'll do both the G and E minor chords in this example. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, and there you have it for the third essential rhythm. Let's move on to number 4. So rhythm number 4 on the list is this. We have quarter, 2 eighths, quarter, 2 eighths. So kind of divides the measure in half. We have 1, 2, and 3, 4, and. So you could almost break it into 2 measures of 2/4 time. But for now, we're just going to stick to 4/4 and think of it in those terms. So again, let's turn the metronome back on, and I'll strum through. I'm going to change chords again. I'm going to use the C chord for 2 measures, and then the A minor chord for 2 measures. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3. 4 and 1. 2 and 3. 4 and A minor. 2 and 3. 4 and 1. 2 and 3. 4 and that's it. And of course, you'd want to continue practicing it. Just kind of loop these over and over and over again to get that sound. All right. So let's go ahead and move on to example number 5. Now in this one I decided to change keys just to add variety. If you want, you can use the same chord for every single exercise. The ones I have on the PDF are just suggestions. So first of all, for number 5, the chords, we have E major and A major. Now what I'm going to do then with the rhythm is it's kind of the opposite of rhythm 3 that we looked at. Instead of starting with quarter notes, we're going to start with the eighth notes, and we'll have 1 and 2 and 3, 4. So we end with the quarter notes there. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. All right, so here's the metronome, and here's what it sounds like. Number 5, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. A. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. And there you have it. That's our 5th rhythm. Now those 5 are the ones you'll want to start with. Get good at those first before moving on to 6 and the ones that come after it. Now rhythm number 6 is going to start subdividing the beat even further into 16th notes. So 16th notes, in case you don't already know, are 1E and a, 2E and a, 3E and a, 4E and a. So what we have is we have the number that comes with the downbeat, 1. Then we have a subdivision of E, and then the and, which we already played in the 8th notes, and then a. So essentially 4 even strums per beat. So I'm going to turn that metronome back on. So when you hear that click, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1E and a, 2E and a, 3E and a, 4E and a. So I'm going to strum that before we look at number 6, just so you can hear those 16th note strums first. 1E and a, 2E and a, 3E and a, 4E and a, 2E and a, 3E and a, 4E and a. So you can hear there's 4 strums per click. So it happens pretty quickly there. And that's again why you'll want to do numbers 1 through 5 first. All right, now number 6 starts off with those 16th notes and then finishes off with 8th notes. And the reason for that is you can feel the difference between those two rhythms. So here we go. Here's what it'll sound like before I grab a chord. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1E and a, 2E and a, 3 and 4 and 1E and a, 2E and a, 3 and 4 and. Okay, so I'm going to throw an E major chord on that and play through the entire exercise. So here is number 6. 2, 3, 4. 1. And again, you'd want to continue repeating that for a little while. All right, let's go ahead and move on to rhythm number 7. Now, rhythm number 7 is definitely one you'll want to learn. And what it does is it takes the 16th notes and combines the first 2 16th notes into an 8th note. So we have 1 and a. So we've kind of cut the E out and kind of attached it to that first beat. So here's what I mean. We have 1 and a, 2 and a, 3 and a, 4 and a. And once you get that feel and get used to what that looks like, you'll see that this rhythm comes up all the time. In fact, sometimes it's called a gallop because it kind of sounds like a horse galloping off, you know. And it's kind of a fun rhythm to play, really. So again, I'm going to grab that E major chord so that way we can strum all 6 strings. And in exercise 7, it's just that same rhythm throughout to give you a chance to practice the 8th followed by 2 16ths. So here it is. I had to turn on my metronome here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and you can hear when I'm done, I'm kind of listening for that high-pitched click so that I know that I've hit the right beat and that if I was to continue, I'd be on the 1 again. So I'm listening for that 1 to come up afterward, just to double check myself as I'm strumming through it. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to essential rhythm number 8. Now, essential rhythm number 8 is kind of like the opposite of number 7. Instead of an 8th note followed by 2 16ths, we now have 2 16ths followed by an 8th. Now this is one that threw me off for years because when you look at it on paper, it looks like it's short, and then a pause before you play, but there isn't one. It's 1 E and. So you're cutting off the very last part of a set of 4 16th notes. 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and. So it's the at the end that's missing. So here's what it sounds like. 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and. Now, with the metronome, and this time we're going to use the chord A major. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. And there you have it. That's number 8. All right, let's move on to rhythm number 9. Now, rhythm number 9 is another variation on the 16th note strums. This time it's 16th note, 8th, 16th, 1E, So the is the very last possible thing you can play before the next downbeat. So it's got kind of an unusual feel, 1E, And then the next thing you would play kind of helps inform that a little bit at the end. 1E, 2E, 3E, 4E, And that's what it sounds like if you have one measure of that rhythm over and over again. So I'm going to turn on the metronome here. This time I'm going to use a G chord and I'm going to strum through number 9 using that rhythm. 2, 3, 4, 1. All right, so that is number 9 on the list. So let's take a look at number 10. So the last 4, 6, 7, 8, and 9, all included 16th notes and variations on those. The last 2 we're going to look at are common strum patterns that you'll come across again and again, that if you know how to play them, it'll make it a lot easier to learn a lot of different songs. So number 10 uses a dotted quarter note. Now a dotted quarter note is the same as 3 eighth notes all tied together. So you would count that like this, 1 and 2. Then the and of 2, or the second half of that second beat, is what you would play next. So here's what that sounds like, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and. So that 2 is being held over by that dot. So I'm going to go ahead and play number 10 using the strum pattern that we just took a look at here. So now I'm going to play number 10 on the list using the metronome. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 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 then it cuts off at the end there. Okay, and then we're moving on to number 11, which is one of my favorites, and it's one that I've heard in countless songs. And with number 11, we're doing all eighth notes, but this time there's a little bit of syncopation thrown in. So the second half of the second beat is held over into beat 3. So you're not strumming anything on beat 3. So you'd have 1 and 2 and hold and 4 and. Now when I strum that, I keep my strumming hand going. 1 and 2 and. I go down on 3, but I don't play anything. So that way I'm ready to come up on the and of 3. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. So by going down on 3, your arm is still feeling that beat, feeling that pulse, so that when you come back up, it makes sense rhythmically. So on the PDF, we have a C chord for 2 measures, followed by a G chord for 2 measures using that rhythm. So once again, for number 11, I'm going to turn on the metronome here. 60 beats per minute, which is pretty slow, just to get us practicing. And I'm going to strum through the last of the essential rhythms. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2. All right, so you could hear when I was holding that over, you can hear that click that on beat 3 that comes through. And so that's why it's so useful to use a metronome, so you can listen for when the clicks should happen. And that's why you want to go through all of these essential rhythms as often as possible, so it's clear in your mind where these clicks fall. When you hear them, you know you're strumming in the right spot in the measure or in the song. So just like I did, I highly recommend that you use a metronome when you practice these, or if you don't have one, look at a clock with a second hand. That's the same as setting a metronome at 60. And you can use that to keep your time, to make sure you're not speeding up or slowing down, that you're right on time. Also, practice with different chords. And once you get some of the easier ones down, practice the chords that you're not as good moving between. So that way you can work on your chords as well as your rhythms. Then once you have these down, you can start combining patterns. You can take any one of these, mix it with any of the others, and you'll have something new that's going to sound interesting, and it'll get you learning these patterns in a new way. Now, once you get how these work, once you're completely sure where you strum, how these notes are divided up, then other rhythms will start making more sense because you'll understand where the one is, the and, the e, the all that sort of thing. You'll understand how ties work, dotted rhythms work. So when you encounter something that's similar, you'll be able to work out what the rhythm should sound like. All right, well, I hope that helps. Go through, practice these 11 essential strumming patterns for the guitar. And if you liked this video, please do give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I always appreciate it when people do that. On top of that, don't forget about the free ebook. Just go to themissingmethod.com, sign up for the newsletter, and you'll be able to download that right away. All right, so go get to practicing, turn that metronome on, and I will see you in the next video.